A very warm welcome to this live webinar brought to you by the Asian Seller and Private Label Legion. And today we are so excited to be joined by the legionnaire himself, the legionnaire in chief, Tim Jordan. That didn't go too well, did it?
Yeah. What people don't know is that you were practicing that right before we got on. For those of you listening, she literally typed Legion or Legionnaire into Google and made it speak the word, so she didn't pronounce it correctly, and still completely scred it up.
Gosh, I should have practiced more.
Shameful. It's all right.
Well, at least I tried.
So what do you call yourself? Are you the head Asian in chief? Running the Asian seller? Did you see that a couple days ago? Someone's like, why do they call it the Asian seller? And you're like, I'm Indian, but Indians are Asian too, so I'm Asian. And I was like, wow, Meghla just got snippy on Facebook. Like an identity crisis going on. Indians are Asian people.
I said I'm from Singapore. I didn't even say I'm Indian.
I know. I guess the whole time I was thinking, she's saying Singapore, but deep down she's thinking, Indians are Asians, buttholes. But I don't know.
Okay, Facebook user.
Facebook
so what you need to do is go to streamyard.com/Facebook and give StreamYard access to your profile so that we can see who you are. So Tim, what are we talking about today?
I have to look at my cheat sheet. So we're talking about trends in e-commerce, and we can't go very deep. It's kind of high level, but trends in e-commerce that we need to be paying attention to for 2021. Hi. My daughter just ran through. You want to come say hi, Cameron? Come say hi. Say hi to Meghla.
Hi.
You're supposed to wait.
All
right,
hi.
Get out of here.
She is so cute.
She takes after me. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to talk about how it's very important this year that we stop, those of us that sell on Amazon, it's very important that we stop being Amazon sellers and start thinking of ourselves as e-commerce sellers. I'm going to talk briefly about the roadmap, right? I can't, of course, go into granular detail, but people talk about selling on Amazon or selling on Shopify. What is the plan? And a lot of times we talk about functions, but we don't talk about the plan. Hey, what's my 24-month goal? And I think that this year it's going to be different than it has in the past few years. And I'll talk about why I think that is. And then I'm going to just talk a little bit about some of the biggest mistakes that I still see people making in e-commerce that are causing them to either leave money on the table or find massive discouragement and sometimes failure completely. So we'll talk about all that good stuff.
Awesome. So before we get into that, do you want to do a quick introduction in case there are some people who are living under a rock and they don't know who you are?
I promise there's a lot more people out there that don't know who I am than you think there are. But yeah, my name is Tim Jordan. I started, I've done a lot of stuff, but I started selling in e-commerce about 2015. I've owned and operated sourcing company, shipping company. I had 3PLs supporting e-commerce sellers. I've done consulting for a lot of big brands, a lot of big service-based companies. I have worked with a lot of different organization groups in training, education. I am the chief growth officer at a company called Sellers Funding, which is the leading fintech, which is financial technology company in the e-commerce space right now. I have a group coaching program, and then I do masterminds and really hardcore training programs like the one that Meghla and I have coming up starting next week. So I do a lot.
Yeah, and you also coach on the India sourcing trip. You forgot about that. That's the most important thing that you do.
Well, we haven't been able to travel in a year, so I've just completely forgot about all that stuff.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, guys, so all of you watching, why don't you give us a like and a love and share this video, and let's get started. So, Tim, first of all, let's talk about some of the trends that you think are really important in 2021.
All right, so I think that not necessarily the trends that I'm familiar with even, but the trends that those around me that are smarter than me are focusing on this year, and trends that I am going to focus on learning rapidly in this year. That's kind of what I want to talk about. And these are things that are becoming more and more important and more relevant going into 2021. You've probably heard them mentioned before, but like myself, you might not have taken action in them. The first one, trend in e-commerce, is voice. All right. Voice search and voice optimization is becoming massive. So the first time I really heard anybody talk about voice about a year and a half ago in Austin, Texas, at a digital marketing event, they were talking about how voice is important. You need to optimize for Alexa. But even though it sounded good, there's really no actionable idea of how to do that, right? Like, how do we actually do that? And I think it's because the voice algorithms needed to become more advanced, more robust, and companies need to start figuring out how to take voice search engines and transition them to an e-commerce based system where you could essentially buy stuff. So the first place we really started seeing that was with Amazon Alexa. And Amazon Alexa started doing things like integrating shopping lists into your Amazon cart. They started reminding you when you needed to replenish like a grocery item or a home item. They started doing things like when you searched for a solution for something, it would start offering product options to fulfill that solution. But it was still very isolated. It was like compartmentalized. It was siloed. But all of the big voice search engines out there, Google, Siri, Amazon, they're all starting to talk to each other now, right? And that's silently just been happening over the past couple months. The development teams put these things together. And what that means is that all of these different interfaces and networks are now becoming commingled. So the power of optimizing something for voice will actually now cross platform. So for example, if I optimize a Google shopping listing or a Google shopping product on Google, so Google Voice, Google Search, Android phones, things like that, now those results are actually coming up with Siri on Apple stuff. I can use Siri and I can search what's the best potato peeler, and it's starting to communicate with Amazon and will return results based on that Amazon platform. So I think that we've had a couple of years of people and technologies and platforms to mature and kind of get their wheels spinning, and now they're starting to communicate with each other. And I think it's going to be exceptionally cool. So this year, I'm learning, and I'm actually hiring a consultant to start teaching me and do research for me based on voice, because I think that even this year, the actual velocity of sales might be a little slow, but I think that if we take this year and learn it, that going into 2022, we're going to be ahead of the curve. Right. So voice is, I think, very, very important to start learning this year and start implementing. The second, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, like, how can, e-commerce sellers like you and me, how can we sort of optimize our listings or, for voice specifically? And what kinds of products are really good for this? Is it like, toilet paper that you can kind of order on a regular basis? Or are there, more sort of more sophisticated products as well that you think people will be ordering via voice?
So the way to optimize for voice is it's very different than anything else. So I can't take my Amazon listing and go to the voice optimization section. I actually have to go into different platforms like the Alexa platforms and teach Alexa, hey, this is a solution to this problem, right? Google Shopping, you have completely different portals that connect to Google that attach to like the voice. It's not automatic. It's not super intuitive. You have to research specific platforms and figure out the off-channel silos, essentially, where the optimization is done. Now, to answer your question of like what is a good voice product, we don't actually know yet because we don't have a ton of data. We're seeing a lot of people that, of course, getting on and say, Siri, order laundry detergent, Siri, order toilet paper, right? We know that, but those aren't products we're going to sell. Those are consumer commodities, low profit, and the big brands occupy those. But as people are becoming more and more accustomed to voice, they are starting to look for solutions to very specific problems, right? So a car mechanic will get on a cell phone, and instead of typing in stuff, they'll say, special tool for changing timing chain on a 2006 Honda Accord, right? Well, where it used to be that like Google on an Android phone would pop up YouTube videos, right? Those were always the first response for YouTube how-to videos. Now above the YouTube videos are Google shopping results based on the keywords within that query, right? And that's only recently started to change. So I think that when you can answer a question with a product, that's the first place that we're going to start seeing large traction in voice, because people are still asking those questions. They're still asking Jeeves. Remember that website like 20 years ago?
Yeah.
They're still asking for it. So very few people are getting on voice and saying, Alexa, I need to order bed sheets. They're not saying that. They're going to say, Alexa, what's the difference between 800 thread count and 400 thread count sheets, right?
Yeah.
And where the results used to pop up again on YouTube and things like that, a video explainer, now it's starting to throw up 800 thread count sheets as an option, and Alexa's even starting to respond to that. And what's interesting, and the reason I think voice is going to be cool, is we're seeing some small micro brands doing exceptionally well. So, for example, coffee. All right. In the US, you've got Folgers and Maxwell House, dominating the retail shelf space. But when you ask for like top coffee brands or Alexa, what coffee is good and things like that, you're getting these micro brands like Black Rifle Coffee and what's it on Death Wish Coffee, and those coffee brands that are not killing the game in volume, but they're killing the game in specific optimization and branding. And they're targeting these search engine channels that are using voice for search queries. So we know it works, and it's really, really cool to watch them doing that.
Awesome. So guys watching, if you have any questions for Tim, type them in the comments and we'll take questions. Another Facebook user, Margaret. Hi, Margaret. How you doing? Great resume. Abby is here. Oh, okay. What's the second one?
The second one is continue to focus on video. Video is something that people have been talking about for a couple of years. We've got DSP with Amazon PPC. We've got like video reviews and things like Amazon. But when I say video, what I mean is people are consuming video. Like that's what people want. People don't want pictures anymore. People want video, and video can be repurposed. So people talk about things like social media influencers, but what they don't know is that one simple video from a social media influencer can be used in 20 different things. You can take that and repost that on TikTok. You can take and repost that on your Amazon platform. You can put that on YouTube and repurpose on YouTube. What people don't know about YouTube is still one of the top 5 search engines in the world. And although YouTube has been around for a long time, so people think, oh, it's an old archaic system that's not relevant anymore. That's not true. Since they're owned by Google now, which is the largest search engine, YouTube produces results, right? And YouTube actually affects SEO on the major search engines, Google, Bing, Yahoo, DuckDuckGo even. So what's interesting is if I can find a micro influencer on Instagram to do a video review and I own that video review and I go and I load that onto YouTube somewhere, then Google will start tracking those keywords within that, especially if I use subtitles, and start building up brand recognition, and not necessarily brand recognition, but even keyword recognition related to your product. And all this stuff loops back to whatever e-commerce platform you have, whether it's Amazon or eBay or Walmart or Shopify, BigCommerce, WooCommerce, places like that. So when I say video, I don't just mean, hey, go digital, display ads or go do a video review. What I mean is start thinking really, really hard about how one video can be repurposed into 10 different places. So you have a force multiplier now with your effort and your energy being put forward, and people are absolutely consuming video. Look at TikTok now. I mean, TikTok's going crazy. And what's interesting about TikTok, I actually kind of stopped paying attention to it because I was afraid it wasn't a stable platform. Remember about 4 months ago, we heard the antitrust, the anti-security problems with it being Chinese owned and spyware on phones and all that stuff. And do you remember, Meghla, who was actually in talks to buy it from the Chinese owner?
Was it Microsoft?
So the buyers were going to be a combination of Microsoft partnering with Walmart. All right. And most people don't know that. Maybe most people are like, oh yeah, Microsoft is going to buy TikTok. It was a joint venture between Microsoft and Walmart. Now, why would Walmart want that? Walmart doesn't do anything with SEO or search traffic or anything like that. They're 100% a commerce marketplace, right? So even Walmart recognized the power of having video influence, not necessarily influencers, but influence traffic, and how that can equate to selling products. And if the really smart folks at Microsoft and Walmart are thinking about that, we absolutely should be as well.
Right. And so again, regular sellers like you and me, how do we sort of leverage TikTok and, videos for influencer marketing or any of these other big trends?
One tiny piece at a time. All right. So if someone would say, how do I get started with video? I don't tell them, hey, go out and find an influencer and multi-purpose this stuff. I tell them, go leave a review on your own Amazon product. Go leave a review on somebody else's Amazon. Just practice it. Just learn it. Start looking at TikTok just as a user and search things like makeup. Makeup is one of the most heavily sold products through affiliates and influencers. And just search the term makeup in TikTok and scroll and see that like every third video is them endorsing a product. And most of these TikTok users with 100,000, followers, they're doing this for free. Like you give them a little free product, right? So I'm not saying you need to approach them, but just start watching and figure out what other people are doing and see what's working so that you can find these other opportunities. The other thing is be prepared to start outsourcing this stuff if you can't figure it out. Like we as e-commerce sellers, a lot of times we're one-man bands, we're solopreneurs. We can't do it all, and we can get really, really overwhelmed trying to do all of it. We can't be an expert of all things. But because video now is starting to mature, meaning it's 1 or 2 years, fairly developed in the e-commerce space, specifically in the e-commerce space, there are now really good agencies and services that are getting very competitive in pricing that are experts at this. They live it, breathe it. That's all they do all day, every day. They have huge teams that just focus on video. And because there are so many of these agencies coming up, it's starting to get very, very competitive in pricing. So if you're just completely overwhelmed, like I am even thinking about it, think about outsourcing it.
Right. I think apart from TikTok, even Facebook is focusing so much on video nowadays, and there are all of these micro influencers. I mean, sometimes I just get sucked into these Facebook videos, and there are a lot of makeup tutorials and other stuff, other things as well. Okay, cool. So what's number 3?
Number 3 would be focus on logistics. All right. We know that this year, one of the biggest problems for existing Amazon sellers was getting their products to customers, whether it was getting the products from your supplier in India or China, getting it shipped, getting the production even done. Things really, really got very, very slow with production. And then especially like inbound shipping your stuff to Amazon, Amazon restricting the inventory volumes that they accepted for certain products. It killed a lot of people's stuff. My Q4 sales were abysmal compared to what I expected because I could not get my inventory, and I really screwed up and was not prepared for that, right? And the problem is a lot of people think that, oh, this is a temporary thing, like COVID caused this. I don't think it's temporary. I think this is going to be long term. One thing is, even though we're in 2021, COVID's still a problem. People are still going into massive lockdowns. People are still using massive amounts of e-commerce. Even the logistical systems like Amazon FBA are running on, in some locations, skeleton crews of employees because they're trying to socially distance within the warehouses. And then the shipping companies like USPS, UPS, FedEx, and then all the other ones in the other countries, they're completely overwhelmed, right? So everything's slow. So I think that to succeed in e-commerce this year, you need to start thinking about multiple solutions for fulfillment, distribution, and logistics. And that will give you an advantage over everybody else that's not doing that. As an example, let's talk about China. Everybody complains about the Chinese sellers. Oh, the Chinese sellers always beat us on price. It's too competitive. Guys, we have so many as U.S. citizens. I have so many advantages over the Chinese sellers in selling in e-commerce because I can finagle my distribution. I can have multiple ways of getting products to customers. I can put my hands on products. They can't, right? So I'm more flexible and nimble. So I think that if we're focusing on having multiple logistics channels, when one logistics channel like FBA starts slowing down, we can pivot over to something else, which will offer faster delivery times to customers, higher sales rate, higher velocities, higher rankings, things like that. So the third e-commerce trend that I really see this year is the need for multiple logistics options for product fulfillment.
Right. And you're not referring to logistics from China, for example, shipping your products from China to the US, because that's a huge issue too.
I think that's part of it. I think.
Yeah.
So I was talking to Brandon Youngday, and we were talking about how, a lot of people will have a shipping company they're comfortable with, and then they get a quote from them that's super high, or they say, hey, we're 3 months out getting this stuff shipped. And they go, oh, crap, now what? Let's go find a different shipping provider. Well, it takes forever to find a new supplier, a new shipping provider. Be thinking about that right now. Like I right now about solid 4 companies that I can ship from China and import my stuff. And I'm comfortable with all of them because I'm consistently getting new updated quotes and pricing from them. I have ongoing relationships with all of them, even the ones that I don't use very often. I occasionally throw them an order just so that I stay in their books and I stay relevant to them. That way, if one falls apart, I've got like quadruple redundancy ready to go. But you have to be preparing for that before the emergency happens, right? Like you have to be proactive and not reactive.
Right. Ari Shaker. Hi, Ari Shaker. Monica. Hi, Monica. How's it going? Facebook user. Okay. Do you have any more?
Let's stick with those 3. I know we've got a lot to cover. We're going to run out of time.
Okay, cool. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic, and that is why should Amazon sellers stop being Amazon sellers and focus more on being product sellers?
So I think that Amazon is by far the best way to get started in e-commerce, and it's created a little bit of a problem. And what I mean is so many people have become dependent on the solutions, the education, the trends, the operations, all of this in Amazon, that they are just like stuck in this tunnel, right? They've got tunnel vision. And what's interesting about that is other marketplaces, other channels are developing and maturing so fast that sometimes we've got like blinders on. We don't realize what's going on around us. Very few people are talking about the fact that Walmart just became the second largest marketplace. Very few people are talking about the fact that like TikTok is actually opening up an e-commerce platform. Shopify is opening up a marketplace. Now that's huge because Shopify has been not a marketplace, but just an e-commerce facilitator, meaning it was a tool that you used to start your own e-commerce store. You had to provide your own traffic. But now Shopify this year is starting to create consolidated marketplaces for product trends. What's that mean? It means they drive the traffic. This is huge. So when we think of ourselves as Amazon sellers, I think we're very self-limiting. We limit our opportunities. We limit our education. We limit our potential growth. I'm not saying don't sell on Amazon, but don't identify as an Amazon seller because I think it really restricts you. Right now, we're also seeing a lot of service opportunities for cross-channel fulfillment, repurposing of listings, ways in which you can list on multiple locations throughout different marketplaces, kind of with one click of the button. And I think that that's very, very important for a lot of reasons. We're also starting to see a lot of competitiveness within this cross-channel sales with one fulfillment system business model. And what I mean by that, for example, is Amazon FBA has been doing this for a number of years. If I sold something on Shopify, I could set up my Shopify store to send a fulfillment order to Amazon, and Amazon would actually ship that product to my Shopify customers. And they would do it in a blank box. It wouldn't be an Amazon branded box. Well, about a year and a half ago, Amazon said, we're not doing that anymore. We'll still ship it, but it's going to be an Amazon box. So if I sold something on eBay and it got shipped by Amazon, it came in an Amazon box, it was a little bit weird. Well, then we saw early last year the partnership announcement between Shopify and Walmart, which was huge. So when they announced a really solid partnership, one thing they started doing was this cross-channel fulfillment where Walmart would fulfill Shopify orders. So I could send my inventory into Walmart, have it listed on Walmart, have it listed on Shopify store through sales funnels, whatever I had, and Walmart would distribute that. And Amazon said, oh, crap, we better get with the program. So about the middle of last year, Amazon reinstituted their more robust off-channel distribution program where they started doing the white box shipping and things like that. In fact, I think that system is so good that this year I was seeing Amazon purchases with delivery times of 5 to 7 days, even to prime customers, but off-channel sales being dispersed by FBA were a lot of times being shipped in 2 to 3 days. It was crazy, right? So all of this compiles into this like giant mound of reasons why I think that we, self-limiting human beings that we are, have to stop thinking of ourselves as Amazon sellers and start taking advantage of all of these different pieces of infrastructure that are being built and that are being consolidated right now to make it easier for us to sell off of Amazon. Also, I try to be a few years ahead of what I think is coming. And I honestly think for major competition to come in, Amazon can't be the king forever. And, we've heard whispers of things like antitrust lawsuits and things like that coming in the US and other countries. We've seen other government regulation coming in and kind of slapping Amazon on the wrist in other countries. But also Amazon is getting really cocky. Like Amazon has significantly reduced their affiliate commissions for affiliate sellers. They're really treating sellers poorly in a lot of areas. They're really, because they're kind of like king of the castle, they're acting like a spoiled, stuck-up king in some regards. So what that does is that means that, but they're also making a crap ton of money, right? So I think that what's happening is other companies are receiving large investments to compete with them because, Wall Street wants to support Walmart and give Walmart the money to build an infrastructure that can support and take a piece of that pie. So that's why Walmart blew up. They started about 4 years ago when they bought Jet.com, and it just has been growing since then. So I think that Amazon is poised to start receiving more aggressive competition from other platforms. And if we as product sellers, not Amazon sellers, are thinking in that way, we're going to see these other opportunities pop up, and we're not going to be blind to them. We're not going to be, completely naive of them and be able to take advantage of the other growing platforms that are going to be able to make us a lot of money.
Right. And how do you think Amazon sellers need to change their, their perspective or their business or their products or their branding? What changes do they need to make in their business to position themselves as a product seller, not only an Amazon seller? Is there anything that we can do right from the start?
Well, the first thing is start building your own audience and building your own brand, right?
Mm,
I definitely don't think that you have to have a big, robust brand to sell on Amazon, right? You sell a keyword, not a product, all that good stuff. But once you start getting that traffic, getting that velocity, get a little bit of capital, you do need to start thinking about branding, which is important. That way you can carry this product off of Amazon where branding is important. And then you'd start building an audience. And you can do that before you even take your product off Amazon. You can do it through um, QR code insert cards for warranty purposes, and start building those email lists and building those audience, building those Facebook lookalike audiences. Because marketplaces will change. Amazon will change, Walmart will change, eBay's definitely changed. But when we own our own lists and we own our own audiences, it's much easier to retain that lifetime value of those customers, regardless of what platform or channel we're selling on, right? It's massively important. I know, Meghla, we've talked about like ClickFunnels, right? ClickFunnels is a pretty cool digital marketing tool, but I hate it. Hate it, hate it,
yeah.
hate it, hate it. And the reason is they don't let you have the power, they don't let you have the control. You can't build SEO through ClickFunnels, right? So you're doing all this work, but you're never really owning or building anything that's yours. Whereas if I build a Shopify store and I start getting some traffic, as slow as it is, but it starts building slowly and slowly and slowly, every client or potential customer that lands on that, I can pixel them through Facebook and retarget them, build lookalike audiences, get email addresses, all sorts of stuff. And you own that. So if you get suspended from Amazon for some ridiculous bullcrap reason in 2 months, you potentially still have a business going because you weren't reliant on that platform and you hadn't put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak.
Right. So Gabriella is saying, hello, great tips, but overwhelming. Yeah, I think,
Right.
especially for new sellers, it can be very overwhelming. So what do you suggest new sellers should do? I mean, should they just focus on Amazon first and then, establish themselves as a brand on Amazon, get familiar with it? Because even for Amazon, there's just so much to learn, and it takes, months, if not uh, at least a year to get established on Amazon and start
They
selling.
did
So
not build Rome in a day. And a
yeah.
lot of times we do that. We get so wrapped up in all the content, trying to learn everything. And, um, for example, you and I have this product discovery bootcamp coming up next week, right?
Yes.
And for those of you that aren't aware of that, it's a hardcore training session. It goes over about 8 days. It's like live Zoom calls. We talk to people live. We have conversations. Friendships are made, within these groups. Like, it's really, really crazy. But what's interesting is the last couple that we did that were really successful, we had people in this boot camp that had been studying selling on Amazon for 9 months, 12 months, 16 months, and they never launched a product, right? It's because they felt like they just kept having to absorb and learn and learn and learn. Now, some of the reason they hadn't started is because they were scared to death of launching a product because they didn't feel like they had the product discovery mastered. We changed a lot of that. You remember Fatia? By the way,
Yeah.
Fatia, we helped her find a product in that boot camp. She's actually in the process of launching it right now. The tests were wildly successful. She's rocking and rolling. So she's in
Awesome.
she's in our group coach program. So I get the other reason that a lot of people aren't moving is they're just overwhelmed. So what I tell people is forget all this advanced stuff and just list a product, right? Don't worry about importing and packaging and branding and off-channel traffic and all this stuff. Like, literally go to the dollar store, buy $51 items, package them in 2-packs so it's a unique ASIN, and list them on Amazon. Now, are you going to make any money doing that? No. But you will have started a listing, and you'll get to start playing with PPC, and you get to learn how to optimize and check your keyword indexing. And like, it's just a tiny little step. You can do it in one day. But when you do that and you just start making small incremental pieces of progress, like you're not drinking from a fire hose, you're drinking a teaspoon of water at a time, you can actually start making progress forward. So my advice to anybody that's overwhelmed is pause what you're doing, understand that you're probably diving in way too deep before you dive in at all. Like, you're probably still, trying to absorb information you're not going to need for the next 6 months, or information that is not specifically relevant to what you're doing, or it's super advanced. Just pause and get started, right? Just get
Yeah.
started. Do something very small, incremental changes. I started reading the book Atomic Habits again this year, right? It's all about like building habits and generating habits, but the principle of the atomic habits is that something very small can make a big difference, right? So, you think about an atom. When you split an atom, that little bitty, you know, chunk of something very, very small, when you split it, the right type of atom, it creates tremendous amounts of energy, atomic
Mhm.
energy. So the point of this premise of like atomic habits, I think translates to atomic steps. We make small, tiny little steps, which when you add them up, creates tremendous energy, tremendous power, tremendous change. But a lot of times we're so caught up in, well, what's the next thing I need to learn, that we're not actually learning by doing, right?
Shiny object syndrome, right? I think
Yep.
that's what happens. And yeah, I mean, you got to learn to walk before you can run, right?
Yeah. The analogy
So
I use, have you heard my baby analogy?
no, tell me.
Like a baby that starts learning to crawl doesn't just one day get up and start running,
Yeah,
right? That baby is going to stand up and fall and 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 stand up and fall. But if it doesn't fall, it's not going to be standing up. And if it's not standing up, it's never going to learn to walk and run, right? So we as sellers are so afraid of failing. We're so afraid of falling like that baby. We're so afraid of not getting it right the first time that we crawl forever, making sure that we're 100% ready to get up and run. You just got to stand up and you got to fall and you got to bruise your knees and you got to figure stuff out by doing it, not just
yeah,
absorbing information for the next 3 years and never actually making any progress.
totally agree. So, Gabriella, I hope that helps you a little bit. Alan, morning, Meghla,
Alan,
evening,
Alan,
Tim.
Alan.
I was in the boot camp planning to launch in Q1. Great course. Oh, thank you, Facebook user. Tell us your name. Who are you, Facebook user?
Meghla always says that with like a little bit of snide sarcasm. Thank you, Facebook user.
Facebook user. Okay, so awesome. Think of yourself as a product seller, not only an Amazon seller. So, yeah, tell us about the roadmap, Tim. So, what is sort of the game plan for an e-commerce brand, e-commerce seller in 2021?
So right now, I think that the game plan needs to be selling a brand, and I'll tell you why I think that is. And I think that it's easier now than it's ever been before. And I think this is a unique scenario that's just popping up right now that people need to pay attention to. And this is relevant because a lot of people are going too slow. A lot of people are trying to make everything perfect. They're trying to absolutely have everything polished instead of just building momentum. And I think that there is a definitive timeline of when brands are going to be hyper inflated in value. Okay, so let me explain this, and maybe it'll help explain why I think that timing is important. Last year, Thrasio became the fastest business to hit what they call unicorn status, which is profitable of a certain valuation. Yada yada. They valued at $1 billion in just a couple years of existence. Now, what Thrasio does is it goes and buys just Amazon brands, buys this SKU, buys this brand, buys this SKU, these 3 SKUs, this brand, and they consolidate them and they get them turning into a big flywheel with this great team, and they make crazy money doing it, right? Well, the way they did it is they brought in a bunch of venture capital money through what's called a credit facility, and that credit facility is basically money that they borrow inexpensively, buy the brands, put them together, and then pay the credit facility back. And those credit facilities for things like that are, and I think it just cut out, but the credit facilities for operations like that are typically hedge funds. These are investment funds, right? So what happened was when Thrasio hit this giant valuation, all the hedge funds and VC funds took note and said, holy crap, what is their business model? Oh, they're just buying brands and consolidating them. So now within the last 6 months, we have seen just an explosion of aggregators, brand consolidators, Recon Brands and Thrasio and like a million others that are even private. They don't even advertise. And I probably know of 20 of them. And what's happening is those are becoming so competitive because they have to spend their money. They have to cycle and churn this credit facility that they're being pressured to buy brands, buy brands, buy brands, buy brands. What's that do? In a more competitive market for these brands, it drives up the value of these brands. So I'm seeing people with very, very basic Amazon brands. I mean, there's no very, very little enhanced brand content, no off Amazon branding, no big lists, email list built. They're just doing 6 figures a month in, or I'm sorry, 6 figures a year in overall revenue with some profitability. It doesn't even have to be huge profitability. And they're valuing it like 3 and 4 times, 3 or 4 multiples. So think about this. Even if you can't afford to go full time in Amazon, or it's still a side hustle for you, it's not terribly difficult to get 6 figures of sales in a year. And when you do that in 1 year, and you've got this rapid growth, it looks really good on paper. And all these these consolidators, aggregators are just fighting each other to find these brands that are opportunistic to buy to fill their portfolio and churn that spend and turn over that money in their credit facility. Like, we're being overvalued right now. And I think that in the next 24, maybe 36 months, people are going to realize it. And these VC funds and these hedge funds are going to realize, ooh, these were not as good investments as we thought they were. But that's great for us. But I do think there is a definitive end to that really, really hyperinflated valuation period. And right now is the time to take advantage of this. I have a friend, Lori Barsby. I interviewed her recently on AMP and podcast who just sold her brand. And like, she straight up said it. She was like, I cannot believe the valuation they gave me. I had no idea that I was building this valuable of an asset. Like, it's crazy. She took a big check, and I'm seeing a lot of people doing that. So my point is, when we look at the roadmap of Amazon, I think that, a lot of people that have been studying this at all and listening at all to content, they understand what it is. You find a product, you get it going on Amazon. Hopefully you get a few different products in the same genre. You start to build a brand. You take it off Amazon, meaning, you set up a Shopify store. You'll start some social media stuff, use influencer marketing, build off Amazon traffic. So you're not relying on this channel, yada, yada. You keep going. But I think that you need to shorten the time frame of evaluation period to probably under 24 months. And your roadmap now going into 2021 should definitely include hyper focus on valuation. That's things like very, very clean accounting, very, very clean books, keeping your expenses exceptionally low. That way the profitability is higher. And then also making sure you have SOP procedures and redundancy in your sourcing and logistics. Now, those are all things that were great before. They were convenient, but now I think they're super important for the purpose of valuation. Because if I'm going to sell my brand and I have a list of 3 or 4 suppliers that can make my product and multiple logistics supply chains and SOPs for my brand VAs and things like that, that can significantly increase the valuation for your business on top of just making your life easier, right? So all these things are very important. So I think the roadmap right now is adjusted for hyper focusing on trying to sell a brand within the next 24 months.
Right. For somebody who's just starting out, what does that look like? What does that look like in terms of product research? Are there certain types of product categories they should be looking for? Or what does it look like in terms of the marketplaces or, the various channels that they sell on? Should they only be focused on Amazon, or is it also important to have other channels? Is that important? What are some of the things that somebody who's just starting out should focus on from day one?
So to start towards the end of your question, for the 24-month life cycle of selling a brand, I think that having off-channel or off Amazon channels, off Amazon traffic is important to increase your valuation, but it's not necessary. All right.
Okay.
If you're having a hard time figuring out, hey, how do I build this off, Amazon traffic? And for the same energy, you can launch another product in the brand and sell on Amazon just to increase sales. Do that. Right. I think that's going to be important. I think that when it comes to product selection, it's going to be a huge part of this. And the reason is people like moats, people like staying away from competitive products. Now, when I say moats, what I mean is like protection. So if I have a castle, I would build a moat around it full of attacking. Well, right now, one of the biggest mistakes I see people making in Amazon is they're still selling Me Too products. They're still selling the same bull crap that everybody else is selling. It's still competitive. And if I'm a potential purchaser of your brand, then I see that you're position 2 on, all these pages for high keywords, but it's only because you're spending a ton on PPC. And I know that one little fluctuation in Amazon algorithm will bury me on page 7. That's not a very wise purchase decision. But if you do your homework and product research and find a unique product that's in demand with low competition, of course, that's what we talk about in this boot camp that we're starting next week, finding something that's unique. Well, that obviously massively increases the value of that product because the profitability is higher and there's less competition. So it's much more attractive to a potential investor or purchaser of that brand or that SKU or that product, right? So it all starts with picking the right product first. And then it's not massively important what you do after that, except for getting sales, getting velocity, and making sure you're profitable.
Right. And is it also important to build a brand and maybe focus on a specific niche where you can expand into various related product categories?
So the roadmap that I like to follow, which is sell the business, right? It's important if it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now let me say this: if if I find a product opportunity for these, all right, these are foam blocks. It's a fishing accessory, and I find that these are great product opportunities. I start selling them. I see a lot of people saying, "Well, I got a fishing product. I need to sell another fishing product." So then they go out and buy fishing line, and they try to launch this fishing line. Well, this might not be a good product, but what they're doing is they're ignoring the fact that let me find a new product. They're ignoring the fact that this quartz letter opener is a great product to sell on Amazon. So
Yeah.
it's like you're stepping over a dollar to pick up a dime. They're saying, "Oh, it's so important that I stick with my fishing brand and build the brand and build the catalog." When it might be a whole lot easier and make more sense just to launch a completely unrelated product and get profitable and get sales volume and things like that. Brands are important, but they're not the be all end all. And I see a lot of
Mm.
opportunity in focusing on, especially on Amazon and the marketplaces. If you are good at product research and you're good at launching products in Amazon, maybe the best use of your time is just to launch a lot of products on Amazon and not go out and focus on how do I build a brand around these foam blocks, right? Branding is important, but we also have to define what is a brand. Is brand a great packaging and a great logo and a great story? It's part of it. But a lot of people also think that a brand is global recognition with amazing website with 100,000 hits a month and great SEO. And both people are right, right? So, do I think that great packaging and great listing and great user experience and unboxing experience and brand story is important? Yes, do that with every product you sell on Amazon. But when I say that branding is important, I don't necessarily consider that actually building a brand. You know what I mean?
Right.
Building a brand is all this other stuff that's combined. And sometimes the lowest hanging fruit is just to launch more products and sell them, right? So
Right.
it all varies. Now, if I start selling these things, which are a fishing accessory, and I find another opportunity for a fishing accessory, that's great. That's a bonus because now I can duplicate. I have a force multiplier, right? I'm not duplicating work. So as I build an audience for one product, that audience is immediately relevant to the other product. So if I can easily find several products within the same niche category that would be grouped together, that's just like the holy grail. That's the bonus. And that might cause me to escalate or increase the speed in which I'm going to start building this off Amazon brand because it's force multiplier. It makes more sense. I'm not going to build some giant off Amazon traffic source for one product because it looks sketchy. I'm going to invest in this giant Shopify site for a website that sells these foam blocks. No, anybody that goes to it, they're like, what kind of backwards brand is this that has one product? It
Yeah.
just doesn't make sense. That there's not that much value in it, and especially if it's not a consumable or something that people are going to make repeat purchases of. Well, I've built an audience to buy this product where they bought this product. They're not going to buy it again. What was the point of that? For the same effort and energy, I could have launched another completely unrelated product on Amazon and have more money and hope that I'll accidentally find these consolidated categories with multiple products that I can actually start building that brand that makes more sense.
Right. So focus on profitability first and the right products, choose the right products, and branding and everything else is secondary. I mean, especially if you want to sell
No,
your
no, no,
brand.
no. Branding is important.
Yeah.
Branding is initial, but building a huge
Building a
brand
brand.
is secondary. Yep.
Right. Got it. Okay, so this question is from Sastro. Now, he was in our boot camp and he's asking, what kind of brand do acquirers look for? Do you think I can sell mine? So I think you covered the first part quite well. Um, I'm not sure what his products are. Do you remember? Did
I
he
don't
share his
remember.
products?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope probably not. But I think
Yeah.
that different brand acquirers are looking for different things because they want to consolidate too. So if a brand acquirer is buying a lot of consumables and nutritional supplements and things like that, they're going to be more attracted to those. Whereas commodity-based stuff is going to be a different acquirer, right? It's all going to vary. Now, I do think that it's not necessarily relevant to ask what kind of brand, but more what kind of business. right? So like, is this something that has a patented product that has a lot of external traffic? Is this something that has a very unique value proposition that other people can't replicate quickly, right? So not necessarily the category, but I think it goes back to product. If I'm selling fishing accessories, I have much more value in a brand that sells fishing pole holders that are patented than fishing pole holders that aren't patented, right? So it's not the category, it's specific to the product, I think. So it all comes back to product research.
Right. Okay, so can't agree with that. With what? Brands don't just launch new products to build a product line. Real brands rely on their audience to understand what they need. You can call yourself a brand when you have a community of fans and recognition.
So that sounds a lot like what I said, which is
Yeah,
you can create branding for a product, but that's not a true brand, right? A true
yeah,
brand is what you're saying here, Mara, is community fans recognition. I do agree with that. Now, what he may be saying, he can't agree with that it's not important. But I still stand with my comment, which is that building a huge brand is not always important to e-commerce sellers to be successful. I know a lot of e-commerce sellers that have built ridiculous businesses without creating massive brands or recognizable brands or even off Amazon brand. They had good branding on a product level. But I definitely don't think that when we look at the roadmap of being successful on Amazon, that the only way to do it is building. Is it great? Yeah. Is there a lot of money to be made doing that? Yeah. But I think there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. And I think that a lot of people focus so much on building this crazy brand for this product when, sometimes it's just not going to move the needle that much. So it's definitely different business models. They're not just one way of doing it.
right. Okay, great. So let's talk about the next topic, which is product selection. And that's, of course, your expertise. You're known for product selection and Project X, and the bootcamp is also all about product selection. So, what do you think are the biggest mistakes that people make with their e commerce product selection?
So I've been saying this for 5 years, and it's still the biggest problem. Is people, when they go to research product opportunities, spend way too much time and focus looking on what other people are selling on the same platform, right? We worry so much about sales volume. So I call it the Jungle Scout method. Greg Mercer hates me for calling it that, but I saw him at a conference beginning of last year, and he saw me and started to be like, "Hey, Tim," and he was like, "Ah," and then dipped out and walked the other way. He's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot I hate that guy." But I call it the Jungle Scout method. It's this: you look at what's already selling, you determine what of it is selling that is selling well, has high sales volume, has high sales velocity, and you try to get a piece of that pie, right? So you find a product that there's 10 sellers and maybe the reviews aren't great, or maybe you can create a little bit better packaging, or maybe you can create a little, whatever it is, but essentially you're selling the same thing. So your product selection is based on what other people have done well. Well, there's two giant problems with that. If other people are doing it well, you're going to have to fight and scrap to work your way in. That's going to be tough, right? So you're basically saying, this is saturated, I want to try it too. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The second thing is, if you're using that as your criteria and using that as your valuation, the premise of your valuation, every other Tom, Dick, and Harry using Jungle Scout sees that too, right? So what happens is there might be 5 or 6 sellers that are just crushing this one Alibaba product. And you think, oh, I can do better by getting more unsolicited reviews and having better packaging and bundling it with something. Well, the problem is, by the time you go through the whole sourcing cycle, there might be 20 other people that launch at the same time you do. It's happened countless times. I've seen it countless times. So when it comes to product selection, the biggest mistake is people are looking at the wrong thing. They're looking at what other people have done. And I've explained this before, like at some conferences. It's not because people are stupid. It's not because people, are ignorant. I think it's because people are human. And what I mean by that is risk is scary. All right. So the example I use is jumping off a cliff. If I'm standing on, or if I approach a cliff that's overlooking the ocean, and over here on one section of the cliff, there's a line of people and they're all jumping off and landing in the water. Great time, right? Like they're really having a great time. It makes me want to go get in line with them, as opposed to going to this piece of cliff where nobody's jumping off. Because why aren't they jumping off that cliff? Is the water shallow? Are there sharks down there? Am I going to jump down and land on rocks and shatter my femurs? Right? So it's scary to walk where nobody else is and be the first one to jump off the cliff. But when it comes to especially selling things on Amazon or e-commerce or product selection, we need to be jumping off that cliff. All right? Because if we get in line with everybody else, And we do it because it's comfortable and it's safe and we know we're not going to drown. And we see 20 other people are selling this product well. Ooh, that's a safe bet. Let's do that. Well, it's a Me Too product, right? Now, I also don't think that we should jump off this cliff over here without testing the waters. So I think it can be done safely. So we've come up with methods for our PPC testing that we talk about at the boot camp. We come up with ways where we can validate off of Amazon. We could check trends on Pinterest and Etsy and all these other places to determine, hey, the traffic will be coming to Amazon. So even though it's not selling well on Amazon right now, or maybe not listed on Amazon at all, maybe that's a secret. Let's be the one to list it. Maybe people actually want it. We can search keyword search volume, especially in long tail keywords and things like that. We consolidate lower pyramid keywords. You know what I'm talking about from the boot camp, but all this stuff is important. So there are ways in which we can go over here and be the first one to jump off this cliff into that water while knowing the water's safe and warm and fun to jump into, right? So we absolutely, that's kind of my main point with product selection, biggest mistakes people make. We absolutely cannot continue to play follow the leader and choose to launch products that other people are already selling like crazy because it's just getting too competitive. We have to stop that just craziness.
Right. And you also talk about the importance of keywords and that we are selling keywords and not products. And when I heard that the first time, I think last year, that was really eye opening for me. And, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Like, that's one mistake people make, that they think they're selling products.
Absolutely. And that's again, one of the biggest mistakes people make is they fall in love with the product and they don't do keyword research, right? So they see that this product is great. I can sell this, I can sell this, but they fail to realize that I am not selling this. I'm selling the keyword. I'm selling foam, fishboard, winding pack, yada, yada, right? All the keywords that are related to this. And the reason this is important is, one, if those keywords are saturated, the product is saturated, okay? Because we're not selling products, selling keywords. On the other hand, there are products that may be saturated on some keywords, but there's opportunity in other keywords because we sell those keywords, right? So the other thing is we fall in love with our products and we fall in love with this great idea, and maybe it's unique and maybe it's something we saw elsewhere, maybe it's something that we saw on Pinterest, but we fail to research the keyword demand and then assume there's product demand, and then we fail. So we buy 2,000 of these from China and we launch them and realize nobody wants our stupid crap that we just launched, right? Because people are not focusing on keywords, they're focusing on products. And when it comes to a marketplace like Amazon, it's all about buyer intent. If I have the greatest thing in the world, but nobody is searching for it, or if I have the greatest thing in the world, but I can't find keywords that have search volume that's relevant, it doesn't matter. It's going to be buried in the back end oblivion of Amazon and no one's ever going to see it, right? It's not going to do us any good. So definitely focus on selling keywords, not products, because I think that a lack of focus on keywords is by far one of the biggest mistakes people are still making in e-commerce.
Great. So, guys, we're going to start wrapping up over here. If you have any questions, type them in the comments now. So, Tim, are there any other mistakes that you see people making?
I think that people are making a massive mistake in reliance on systems that have worked in the past. The biggest example, we've talked about that this hour already, is like logistics and fulfillment. We get so comfortable with Amazon fulfillment and we get so lackadaisical and we assume that this is always going to be there for us, that we're not being proactive in finding other opportunities and other solutions in case a mistake happens, right? And we saw that big time this year, especially the second half of 2020, when the Amazon FBA fulfillment system started to collapse, because it couldn't handle more volume, and it wrecked some people's, it nearly wrecked mine. Like, I'm preaching to the choir here. Like, this guy learns the hard way, right? Because I wasn't prepared to have excess inventory ready on standby and have my suppliers, negotiated to increase production speed for a little higher price, which would have been really, really smart for me, and have third-party logistical options. Not saying you have to use them, but at least lined up with all this stuff. Like, I would have been in a lot better shape. So again, I think that I became comfortable, and I think a lot of other people are comfortable with the way something has worked for a while, and we're not anticipating potential problems coming up. When those problems hit, it's like a complete dumpster fire. We don't know what to do, and we're just trying to be reactionary, and it's very, very slow.
Right. Cool. Do you want to tell people a little bit more about Product Discovery Bootcamp?
Yeah, we don't have that many spots left, but when I when I got to spend some time with Meghla in India, um, I say some pretty crazy stuff, and a lot of people are like, "Who is this Tim idiot guy?" Spitting this stuff out. But some of it resonated, and one thing that Meghla said was, "Hey, I think this guy understands how to pick products. Like it's very outside of the box." So I've been doing training, I've been doing coaching for a couple years, and have done pretty well. As far as helping people learn these crazy methods. And Meghla came to me last year and said, "Hey, we need to start doing like a boot camp where instead of spending months trying to learn this stuff, and we need an interactive thing. It's a very small group where we spend 8 days and we just pound out information." So we set this up, and the first one we had was, I think, a big success. Second we had was a big success, and we're launching the third one next week. And what it is, it's a very small group, very intimate. And I spill the beans 100% on what I do for product research, product validation, product testing, and product launch, right? We can't get too much into like extreme optimization and logistics and brand building and all that stuff. But the biggest problem people have is just getting started. So we've had people in our boot camps that are just getting brand new starting e-commerce. And I already saw somebody in here that was on one of the last ones. I was at 8 Facebook user. I was in a boot camp planning to launch in Q1. Great course.
So, yeah.
We have people that are brand new, and we've had people that have been on the fence trying to learn Amazon for 2 or 3 years that have finally gotten started. And we've got people that are 7, 8 figure sellers that take these same methods and employ them and learn new products and kickstart, what they're doing. So I think it's very, very valuable. It's very, very condensed. I don't want to oversell it, but I know that a lot of people have found success in it and are interested. And if you want to check out like the system, and if you want to check out the orientation, and you want to check out the schedule and all that stuff for this boot camp, Meghla, I'm sure you can share the website. It's right there. It's theasianseller.com/bootcamp. Go there and check it out. I've got a video in there explaining more about it, but I think it's pretty valuable. And Meghla just told me how many tickets we have sold. It's a pretty small group. We don't have that many left, and then we're going to shut it down, put everybody on a wait list. So if you want to get started in 2021 and hear probably close to 10 hours of conversation with me, again, it's not webinar. It's not I refuse to do a slideshow. It's like 3 hours at a time on a Zoom call with me and a small group of people that are interacting and having conversation. I'm screen sharing and going through it. In both boot camps we've had so far, I discovered very, very, very highly successful Amazon products that I'd never seen before. Like people witnessed it live. On the last one, Fatia, I actually found this. Who wants this? She said, "I want it." And she went through and tested it. She's actually launching it right now. She tested some in Q4 and like a $5 item she could buy. And she thought her competitors or something similar selling for like 30 or 40. She listed hers for like 60 and was like selling these things before they could even hit. And this is without building brands. It's just, we figured out the game. We know how to focus on keywords and not products. Find these products that are super, super in demand with low competition, and they're blowing off the shelf. So anyways, I would implore all of you to check that out, theasianseller.com/bootcamp. It starts next Tuesday, and we do this over the course of 8 days. We don't have Zoom calls every day, but it spans out over 8 days. It's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and another attendee, Nikita, he joined the first boot camp. He placed a large order just yesterday. He was telling me about it, and he did the same thing. He tested the product and used your methods, and he was able to find a really good product. So, Tim, do you think this is for somebody who's just starting out, or is it more for experienced sellers, or is it for everybody, regardless of their experience?
All of the above. It's for everybody. And I had someone message me the other day that saw Facebook post like, "I've never gotten anything launched. What do I do?" And I was like, freaking come on, let's go. Like learn the right way the first time. I've had people that have been studying other methods for years. I had someone who was studying I'll say his name, the Jim Cockrum method. And he was frustrated because he figured it couldn't work, but he's fairly experienced in education. And I said, come on, man, join this thing. You're going to learn something crazy new. And we have other people, not just in this boot camp, but also in my training program, a group coaching program that's very kind of a long-term thing, that are 7 and 8 figure sellers that are still learning stuff every day, that are still employing these tactics to find new products to launch and sell while also optimizing their existing sales. So it doesn't matter kind of what level of seller you are. What we're doing is percent valid for basically everybody.
Right. Can I just quickly share my screen? And I want to show some of the testimonials that we got from people on the website. So And this is like, I really like, receiving feedback after an event or workshop or anything. And it's really nice to see how we've been able to help people. So this is Nikita. He says, damn, almost 2 years selling and I didn't know all that. Wish I knew all this when I first started. Bloody great, Tim. Tonight has more than paid for the whole event. So this was just after the first day. I think I have learned more in this 3.5 hours than I have in months. So valuable. Thank you so much. Thanks, Meghla, for the opportunity. Introduced me to this bootcamp. It saved me from a total fail. This has been great and a valuable lesson. Thank you. I knew this would be great, but wow.
It's pretty
So
powerful.
it is. It is. So this is the agenda real quick. On the first day, Tim focuses on finding keywords, and it's all about keywords, not products. Tim's favorite places to find product ideas. And some of these you haven't really talked about openly or publicly,
Publicly, yeah.
right? Even in Project X. So that was pretty cool. Differentiation with validation. And then day 2 is all about validating demand.
And
So you
day two
have,
is actually 7 days later. So between day one and
yes,
day two, I give out homework. And a lot of time, and by the way, everybody that joins is in a private Telegram group that Meghla and I are on top of. So what's interesting is after day one, there's like constant communication going on. And everybody that's in this group, like, is a cohort of learning together. And people are sharing ideas, people are sharing products they found if they want to. And we have homework in that gap. And then when we hit day 2 a week later, sometimes we even take, people will volunteer. We don't have to share anything, but people are like, hey, I want to share what I found. Tell me if this is good. And we actually like validate using people's research, which is cool.
yeah, absolutely. So that's day 2, all about validating. And then day 3, this is just a bonus. It's a sourcing workshop where I sort of talk about sourcing best practices, whether you're importing products from China or India. And yeah, that's about it. I mean, this is Nikita's testimonial. If you go to the website, you can see it there. And this is the date and the time. So if you're in the United States, it's going to be on 11th January. That's next Monday. And then the second day is going to be the following Monday, 18 January, and then Tuesday, 19 January. And the timings, I think this time the timings are really good. Last time it was like 4 a.m. for you, right, Tim?
Yeah,
And
it was
you're, but this time the timings are really good for the US. So Pacific time is 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., Central 6, and Eastern 7. And if you're in Asia or Australia, the timings are really good too. So for Singapore, it's 8 a.m. on Tuesday. So 12th January, Tuesday, and then 19 January, Tuesday, 20th January, Wednesday. Melbourne, 11 a.m., New Zealand, 1 p.m. So yeah, good timings as well. Let's
Someone
see
is
if
just
we have,
asking, someone just asked
yeah.
a question. Basically, they're still in their 9 to 5 and work all day. If the timing, depending on where you're located, the timing may be good for you because it's either evening or early morning. But if it's not, everything is recorded. All attendees get all the recordings to keep, and you still get to be involved in the boot camp. The Telegram group. So if you miss the first 3-hour live call, you can catch up on live call as soon as Meghla uploads it and sends you the replay. And then you can still do the homework. You can still go back and slowly process all of the past recording. And then you're involved in that Telegram group, so you still get to converse with everybody, which usually is like a 24-hour period because all the boot camps we had people like in almost every time zone of the world, it seemed like. So it was like a round robin. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and the same this time. I was looking at the countries, and we have people from Israel and a lot of people from Europe this time. And it's not very good timing for Europe, but we still have people, and they say that they're going to stay awake and have coffee and all. Okay, Alan, if you're on the fence, I highly recommend joining this product discovery bootcamp. Having personally met Tim, his take on product sourcing, validation, listing optimization, etc., is second to none. Both Meghla and Tim are rock stars. Get off the fence. Oh, thank you so much, Alan.
I'm going to cry, Alan. That's like the greatest testimonial I've ever seen.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. Nadini says, awesome. Thank you. Okay, great. So yeah, guys, check out the bootcamp. If you have any questions, reach out to me or Tim, and we'll be happy to answer them. Well, Tim, thank you so much for your time today. And
Yeah,
it
I hope
was
somebody, those of you listening, found some value in my crazy ideas and moving into 2021. I will say this. I absolutely think 2021 is going to be the best year for e-commerce ever. We know that we had some crazy performance in e-commerce in 2020, mostly because of the COVID lockdowns, right? People had to buy online, so they couldn't go into stores. But that is not changing. And it's not changing for 2 reasons. One is adoption. People that have never used e-commerce platforms before, used them out of necessity and realized, hey, this is easy. This is nice. They're going to continue to use it. And also, COVID isn't necessarily going to just disappear tomorrow, right? We're seeing really heavy lockdowns in a lot of states in the US, a lot of countries. UK isn't. So the e-commerce demand is massive. I was just looking at some data from Marketplace Pulse a couple days ago that showed a large drop, close to 50% drop in e-commerce sales from December to 2 weeks later in the middle of January. All right. It's a huge drop. This year, we're on pace to only have a 22% drop, meaning people are just still using e-commerce. It's still growing, right? So, regardless of what you do, what methods you follow or what type of e-commerce selling or digital marketing you do, or you join our boot camp next week or not, let me say this. Right now is the best time that we have ever seen in the history of the world to be an entrepreneur, whether it's full-time, part-time, side hustle, bootstrap, whatever. The best time in the history of the world. All right. I tell people this all the time. For thousands and thousands and thousands of years, commerce was done the same way. You basically sold to your neighbors, you sold in the local market, you sold in your local town. But it's only been the last couple decades, and really specifically the last 5 years, when the world shrunk and borders started disappearing. And there became an environment where you could sell anything to anyone at any time with the cell phone in your pocket. It's pretty crazy. Unprecedented in the history of the world. So those of you that are still listening, I know you're interested in e-commerce. You wouldn't sit here and listen to me and Meghla for the past hour and 5 minutes. But let me just encourage you. You're on the right path. I think that you're looking at a business model and revenue streams that are extremely valuable right now, because it's just going to continue to grow. And right now is the best it's ever been.
Yeah, I think we all are at the right place at the right time. So we just need to take action. Cool. All right, Tim, thanks a lot. And I will see you next week at the boot camp. Bye
Yes,
bye.
ma'am.
Bye, everyone.